a segunda sessão de trabalho da reunião de mulheres parlamentares do BRICS, com o tema Fortalecendo as Mulheres para enfrentar a crise climática. Perspectivas do BRICS. Estimadas colegas parlamentares, senhoras e senhores, em um mundo cada vez mais impactado pelas mudanças climáticas, o compromisso com o desenvolvimento sustentável tornou-se premissa fundadora de todas as nossas ações e políticas. Os países do BRICS, pela sua magnitude demográfica, diversidade de biomas e significativo peso econômico, possuem
have the responsibilities and potential incomparable of the construction of solutions, transformation for the equilibrium of environment and social injustice. In the center of this agenda, you will find the situation of women, agents to promote this sustainability. The climate crisis does not affect individuals the same way. Women, especially on the rural sections in communities, Indigenous and suburbans, frequently of a mode more intense the effects of the instability of the environment, the regression of the immigration, the forced immigration, even though these women have been traditionally live leadership of defending of the territories. The resilience of the capacity of innovation of the women have been decided with the experience of adaptation of the climate, conservation of natural resource, health, food, and construction of practice, sustainability, of protection of the territories. See the theme about the Arctic climb in place. Notice that it's not, just don't have to face it, you need to rethink social extraction and economic in a way to eliminate disequality of gender and value the potential transformation of the participation of the women participation of the formulation political ambient. It's extremely important of experience lived is recognized, included on the process of decisions in all levels. In this scenario, we will put debates and responsibilities for the parliamentary. We cannot concede politics of different climate that are not anchored, regularly solid, capable of having financial and on the distribution of benefits.
It's up to the Parliament to approve laws that, beyond foster climate policies and environmental policies, they incorporate in a transversal way the picture of gender and the climate actions, dealing with the feminine leadership and the international negotiations, driving resources for sustainable projects fostered by women, promoting its technical capacitation and guaranteeing equality of access and natural resources, financing, and green technologies. It grows the comprehension in all the planet that the climate justice is only feasible when it walks side by side with the justice, the gender justice. The women role of the parliamentary women in BRICS, it's extremely important for the building of this new architecture, of this new regulatory architecture. Through our collective acting, we can foster bold agendas that strengthen the climate justice, putting the women as protagonists of the ecological transition. We're directive fiscalize its implementation and also create pacts among countries that assures a sustainability, a true humane sustainability, diverse and democratic. Together, we have the duty to transform the climate challenge into opportunity of political renewal, social and environmental for our nations. I wish that this debate translates into solid partnerships, innovative programs, and new efforts. The central role of women in the fight for the sustainability, it's an asset to guarantee the future of the next generations in the countries of BRICS. With resilience, inclusion, peace and ecological justice in the center of our decisions. Before handing the floor to the panelists, it is important to make some clarifications. I would like here once again to salute every one of you, ladies and gentlemen, of several countries that make BRICS, and I want to salute in the name of the Federal Senate each and every one of you, especially you, women parliamentarians, in this important event for us to, together, in a collective way, bring solutions for the climate problems of our countries. And in order to organize our work, each panelist may use the floor up to 5 minutes in order to guarantee the fulfillment of our agenda and also the equality among the representatives. The audio system of this meeting room, it is programmed to talk the ring 30 seconds before the end of the specific time as an alert in order to finish her speech. And the microphones will be turned off after 5 minutes of use of the word. I also request that all speak in a very slow and paused way in order for the simultaneous translation can reflect the speech with the utmost precision. I'd like to thank the comprehension and the cooperation with these necessary rules for the good development of the session. Before handing the floor for the first panelist, I'd like to enforce for those who want to subscribe to the NBD, women as agents and beneficiaries of financing, and these inscriptions are still open and may be straight with Thaisa, the civil servant that is near the exit at the back of the plenary. And I'd like to hand the floor for 5 minutes to Ma'am Negabisa Gancho, member of the Low Chamber of South Africa.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson of the session. It is a privilege for me and the people of South Africa to contribute to the important BRICS Women Parliamentarians sub-theme, and we appreciate the warm welcome in Brazil. Climate change is an urgent global challenge that exacerbates existing environmental, social, and economic problems while introducing new challenges, such as increased frequency and intensity of floods, wildfires, heat waves, and droughts in various parts of the world, including South Africa. These climate change-induced challenges exacerbate water insecurity, crop failures, food insecurity, and health risks, resulting in damaging to critical infrastructure and disruptions to the provision of basic services. While all feels these impacts, underlying inequalities and uneven coping capacities leave some population more vulnerable. Women are at a heightened risk due to the several factors. They are overrepresented among the poor, highly dependent on natural resources for their livelihoods, and frequently excluded from environmental decision-making processes. This often leads to women suffering a disproportionate impact from both natural and man-made disasters. The United Nations reports that women are 14 times more likely than men to die in natural disasters. These statistics result from unequal access to essential resources. Women, particularly in impoverished rural areas, often lack information, technology, skills, transportation, secure houses, land ownership, stable jobs, and income, vital for daily life and crisis. Furthermore, women primarily care for children, the elderly, and the disabled, along with other domestic responsibilities. Without sufficient physical and economic support, women are notably more vulnerable to the impacts of disasters. Ironically, women, despite being the most affected, women lead post-disaster recovery efforts. While this reflects our resilience, it adds a significant burden. The loss of infrastructure like homes, schools, and health services, along with financial insecurity, can lead to severe consequences for women and girls. Lacking security and services increase vulnerability to gender-based violence, sexual transmitted diseases, unintended pregnancies, early marriages, and other forms of abuse. Therefore, BRICS member states must adopt a gendered approach to disaster risk management to mitigate these risks for women. The South African Parliament is overseeing the climate change adaptation and gender mainstreaming initiatives, aiming to incorporate gendered consideration into adaptation plans and include women as decision makers in climate change processes. BRICS member states should advocate for similar gender mainstreaming in all climate change responses. These actions must be integrated into spatial planning, and there needs to be improved data availability for monitoring and evaluating interventions. This will allow for the establishment of growth of an inclusive climate response. BRICS member states significantly contribute to greenhouse gas emissions, driving climate change, which disproportionately affects women. Our parliaments must oversee program implementation in line with the nationally determined contributions. While taking responsibility for the emissions, we must reinforce the common but differentiated responsibilities of the Paris Agreement. As I conclude, Chair, our journey towards the sustainable future free from effects of climate change hinges on our collective ability to address the disproportionate impact of women. As BRICS nations, we hold a unique position to champion a gender-responsive approach to climate action by prioritizing women's leadership, ensuring their equitable participation in decision-making and recovering efforts, and investment in their economic and social empowerment. We not only safeguard our most vulnerable, but also unlock the powerful force to resilience and innovation. Let us commit to concrete actions that bridge the gender gap and climate response, fostering an environment where women are not just survivors, but active architects of the climate just world for all. Thank you, Chair.
Parabéns pelas suas palavras.
Thank you for your
E
words.
agora eu concedo a
I'd
palavra
like to
por
hand over the
5
floor for
minutos
5
à
minutes
senhora
to Ma'am
Mariam Abdullahi,
Mariam
membro do
Abdullahi,
Parlamento do
member
Irã.
of the Iran Parliament.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, at the outset, I would like to express the Islamic Republic of Iran's profound pleasure and gratitude for the opportunity to participate in this forum. Today, the world faces unprecedented challenges, with climate crisis standing at the forefront, threatening the environment, social justice, sustainable development, and human dignity. In this regard, the role of women as pillars of family and society in confronting this crisis is undeniable and vital. Iran Guided has consistently emphasized the empowerment of women who constitute half of society's human capital. Women-inspired Islam are not only guardians of cultural and spiritual values, but also pioneers of transformation in social and environmental spheres. In this regard, Iran, relying on its national policies and international commitments, has taken effective steps on enhanced women's participation and leadership in addressing climate-related challenges. Climate crisis disproportionately affect communities, particularly women and children. Women are on the front lines of this crisis due to their daily livelihood dependence on natural resources. These women, drawing on indigenous knowledge, creativity, and resilience, can offer effective solutions. Recognizing this reality, the Islamic Republic of Iran has designed and implemented comprehensive national programs to empower women in environmental governance and has given priority to education and awareness in order to enhance the ecological knowledge of women and girls. For example, in water management projects across arid provinces, the active participation of women has led to efficiency gains and water saving of up to 30%. We firmly believe that education is the cornerstone of empowerment. Educated women as transformative leaders can lead communities toward a greener and more resilient future. BRICS can facilitate the exchange of expertise, technology transfer, and capacity building, empowering women in climate governance, safeguard the well-being of future generations. This path demands cohesive political will, inclusive participation, and international support. Iran has undertaken extensive efforts through governmental mechanisms and by supporting mostly women-led civil society organizations to combat the adverse effects of climate change and protect the environment. Empowering women to address climate crisis requires overcoming structural, technological, and financial barriers. Unilateral and unjust sanctions against Iran have restricted our access to green technologies, international financing, and scientific collaboration, hindering our efforts towards sustainable development and women's empowerment. Thus, we call upon the international community, and particularly BRICS member states, to take effective and united action to lift such obstacles and to establish fair and impactful frameworks for cooperation. Excellencies, Iran stands ready to expand purposeful and effective cooperation with BRICS member states in empowering women and addressing climate crisis. To this end, we purpose the establishment of a special BRICS working group to support women's environmental initiatives. This body can play a pivotal role in facilitating technology exchange, financing green projects, and strengthening women's roles in environmental decision-making. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that empowering women is not only a moral and humanitarian imperative, but also a wise strategy for building a fairer, more resilient and livable world. Undoubtedly, the earth is our shared home and our mother. And who better than mothers to protect it? Thank you for your attention.
Parabéns pelas palavras tão pertinentes nesse debate.
Thank you for important words in this debate.
E
Thank you
agora
very
eu
much.
concedo a
And
palavra
now I
por
grant the
5
floor for
minutos
5 minutes
à senhora Shabari
to Lady
Bayred,
Shabari Bayred,
membro da
member
Câmara Baixa da
of the
Índia.
Lower Chamber of India.
Honorable Chairperson, distinguished delegates, it's an honor to speak on a very profound topic which has been very important. And climate change has gradually grown into a crisis, and it's accelerating at a very fast pace. It is also heavily altering the ecosystem. We are already facing its consequences that are devastating. Dear friends, the last 4 years were the hottest 4 years, and according to September 2019 Meteorological Organization report, we are at least 1 degree above the pre-industrial level and close to what scientists call it as unacceptable risk. We as a multilateral bloc have indeed recognized the difficulties and challenges that we are facing in achieving the goals of global carbon neutrality. We are also aware of the bottlenecks to achieve this. Developing countries, emerging countries, and also developed countries have their own set of challenges and also opportunities in arresting this climate change. BRICS member countries have made its contribution in addressing climate change, and I sincerely applaud each and every member country in standing tall to protect and preserve our Earth. India is also committed to strong climate action, and the climate action is not just the recent one. It has started from the early 1970s. If I can mention about the Chipko movement that has been started by our rural women in order to protect the forests and trees. India has made great strides towards meeting and even exceeding its initial NDCs under the Paris Agreement. Emission intensity of GDP has already reduced by 24% over 2005 levels. India has installed 159 GW of non-fossil electric capacity, thereby already achieving its NDC pertaining to 40%, and we are almost 8 years ahead of our schedule. The National Hydrogen Mission, which has been launched for generating hydrogen from the green energy, which is an alternative to the fossil fuel. India's forest and tree cover is steadily increasing, and it is about 26.4%, of which the India has added 23 wetlands to the Ramsar sites in the last 3 years, and now we are the largest network of Ramsar sites in the entire South Asia. And also, women in India are called Shakti. That means a power, we have the power to change and also heal the world. And women are interlinked in the nature. So when women are involved by promoting clean energy, sustainable agriculture, and climate resilient infrastructure, solution will be very effective and equitable. In India, government has been actively working towards women's empowerment and also gender equality through various policies and schemes. I would like to mention few policies where Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, that is to educate a girl child and also save the girl child, which has been launched in 2015, focuses on improving the child-sex ratio, promoting girls' education, and combating discrimination. Mission Shakti, which aims to strengthen interventions for women well-being and address issues across their life. And also another important scheme is the Sankalp scheme, whose primary goal is to strengthen skill development in the institution. Another milestone is the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyan, which we have about 1/3 reservation for women parliamentarians and also in the legislative assemblies. Empowering women and BRICS nations is not only a matter of providing equal opportunities and social justice. It is an important umbrella approach. By addressing gender inequalities and empowering women to participate in climate action, BRICS countries can definitely unlock their full potential and build a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Parabéns à senhora
Congratulations to Ms. Shabari
pelas suas
Baired for her
palavras.
words.
A Índia realmente avançou
India has
muito
actually advanced a lot
nessa área, né,
in this
na
area,
climática.
on this
Meus
climate area.
parabéns.
Congratulations.
Agora concedo a
Now I
palavra
hand the
por
floor
5
for
minutos
5 minutes
à senhora
to Ms.
Sara Feleknas,
Sara
membro do
Feleknas,
Parlamento dos Emirados Árabes Unidos.
member of the Parliament of the United Arab Emirates.
Excelências,
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to contribute to this important session on strengthening the role of women in addressing the climate crisis. The topic before us reflects both the urgency of our environmental responsibilities and the need to ensure that our responses are inclusive, equitable, and sustainable. As we gather today, the world faces a climate emergency that affects us all, but not equally. Women and girls, particularly in rural and vulnerable communities, are impacted. The United Nations estimate that they make up nearly 80% of those displaced by climate change and are 14 times more likely to die in climate-related disasters. Yet women remain underrepresented in climate decision-making, accounting for less than 1/3 of delegates in global negotiation, while less than 10% of climate finance is gender responsive. This gap weakens our response and limits the effectiveness of global climate solutions. These realities demand more than recognition. They require targeted, inclusive policy responses, and parliaments are central to that effort. As women parliamentarians, we are not only advocates, but decision makers. It is our responsibility to shape legislation that integrates gender into climate policy, ensure that budgets for adaptation and resilience address women's specific needs, and use our oversight role to guarantee inclusive and community-focused implementation. Your Excellencies, in the United Arab Emirates, empowering women in climate action is a national policy priority. Today, women hold more than 70% of leadership roles in the biodiversity sectors at the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. Gender equality is embedded in our national climate strategies, including the UAE Net Zero 2050 initiative and our national adaptation planning. In the lead up to and during COP28, we launched the Climate Change and Gender Equality Initiative. in partnership with UN Women and the General Women's Union in institutionalize women's participation in climate policy at all levels of government. At the parliamentary level, a sustainability committee established in 2022 and chaired by a female member of parliament has led effort to green operations. These initiatives reflect our belief that parliaments must lead by example and that inclusive leadership drives effective climate action. In conclusion, the climate crisis requires equity, leadership, and sustained commitment. Women must be at the center of both policymaking and implementation if we are to build climate-resilient societies that leave no one behind. Thank you.
Parabéns pelas palavras,
Congratulations for your words,
senhora Sara.
Miss
E realmente
Sarah.
a mulher tem que estar
Really, the
no
women
foco
must be
dessas
indeed in the focus of
deliberações
these deliberations.
climáticas. Por isso que aqui estamos.
That is why we're here.
Agora eu concedo a palavra por
I hand
5
the floor
minutos
for 5
à
minutes
senhora
to Ma'am
Nora Ali,
Nora Ali,
membro da Câmara Baixa
member of
do
the Lower
Egito.
Chamber of Egypt.
الحضور الكرام أود بداية أن أعرب عن بالغ الشكر والتقدير
Distinguished attendees, at the outset, I would like to express my profound gratitude and appreciation to the Parliament of Brazil for the warm reception and hospitality. I deeply value the tireless efforts of this forum in addressing climate change, which has become a critical issue for the present and future of our world. The global impacts of climate change are now widespread and unprecedented, both in terms of their causes, manifestations, and scope of influence. This impact disproportionately burdens women, particularly in developing countries, where they heavily rely on local natural resources for their livelihoods, such as agriculture. These sectors are severely affected by climate change, leading to threats to economic stability, food security, and exacerbating health issues, poverty, and lack of education. In extreme cases, women may even face the risk of displacement. We all recognize that adapting to these impacts will become increasingly difficult and costly in the future if immediate and radical measures are not taken. These actions must prioritize enhancing women's resilience and adaptability to climate change. Women are not merely victims of climate change. They are essential partners in adaptation and mitigation efforts. They possess deep knowledge of local environments and sustainable practices, which can be pivotal in developing effective adaptation strategies and achieving stronger, more sustainable outcomes. Dear colleagues, BRICS nations face a set of shared challenges, in addition to those unique to each country that hinder the achievement of net zero carbon emissions. Chief among these is the increasing reliance on fossil fuels in their economies. Our gathering here underscores our firm conviction that climate change poses a grave threat, necessitating an approach rooted in justice and fairness regarding climate justice and a just transition to adaptation. This approach must consider the social and economic specificities of each country and various groups, particularly women, when formulating climate policies and working to enhance their active participation at all levels is crucial. In this context, I am pleased to commend the BRICS Economic Partnership Strategy 2025, adopted in 2020, which outlines the group's development trajectory, establishes a framework for cooperation among its members, and emphasizes the need to ensure the social and economic participation of BRICS populations, particularly women and youth. It also places a special focus on addressing climate change. I equally appreciate the BRICS proposal in April 2025 to develop a new geopolitical climate strategy, which underscores the necessity of coordinating efforts and providing adequate resources to promote sustainable development in the Global South. This represents clear support for women's empowerment by integrating their issues into climate plans and ensuring their access to equitable financing initiatives. Dear attendees, our fundamental role as legislators compels us to proactively propose, discuss, and enact advanced and comprehensive legislation to mitigate the impacts of climate change, particularly those that incorporate a gender perspective, in order to build a more balanced and prosperous future. Parliamentarians from BRICS nations can play a prominent and effective role in this regard through the following measures: strengthen cooperation on climate change to ensure the full and effective implementation of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, and the Paris Agreement. Thank you very much. In establishing knowledge-sharing platforms by developing regional and global networks are also of utmost importance. Thank you for listening and your kind attention.
Compreendo, igualmente a você, que as mulheres parlamentares têm peso muito grande nesses debates, e especificamente nesse debate sobre as mudanças climáticas, onde as mulheres são as mais atingidas com os problemas climáticos dos nossos países
of our
e de
countries
todo o mundo.
and all of the world.
E agora concedo
And
a
now I
palavra
hand the
por 5
floor
minutos
for 5
à
minutes
senhora
to Ms.
Rosa Timeres, membro da Câmara Baixa
member of
da
the lower
Rússia.
chamber of Russia.
Слово. Distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. It's a great honor and privilege for me to welcome women MPs at this 11th BRICS Parliamentary Forum. I would like to thank the Brazilian chairmanship for the wonderful arrangement. I would like to offer my special greetings to our BRICS partner countries who are taking part in this forum for the first time. I am certain that by joining our work, you will make our efforts even more effective. Russia is one of the leading members of the international climate process in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and ensuring that the whole world abides by the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And we believe that the Paris Agreement provides a reliable framework for long-term climate regulation, and in this context, we suggest focusing on implementing the Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC so that every country, each state party can determine its own contribution to fighting climate change based on the national conditions and approaches. At the same time, we urge all the participants to avoid being too alarmist when dealing with climate change and not to use the term of climate crisis. We have to take into account scientific data, and we must proceed from these data in order to promote sustainable development. Brazil will be hosting the COP30 in November 2025 under the UNFCCC. Russia has a lot of expert potential in terms of sustainable development, and we will do everything to help adopt new solutions under the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement, and we wish every success Brazil when holding the COP30. Climate change is a fact, and women have several social roles they play in our society, and we believe that we should not just include the gender factor the women factor in all our documents. We need to take meaningful action, and we must make sure that the young generation understands the importance of fighting climate change. It would be naive to believe that it's enough to have men and women working together to find all the necessary solutions. We are convinced that women need support and empowerment, including to be able to take on leadership roles, but this should not be limited to any specific policy area. We also understand that all countries have their own climate problems and they suffer in different ways, and the perspective regarding women's empowerment may also vary. For example, in Russia, we cannot say that Russia is not that women are disproportionately affected by climate change. This is not true for Russia. Russia is committed to fulfilling its international obligation to ensure gender equality, and we support efforts to implement the 4th World Conference on Women that was adopted in Beijing in 1995, and the 23rd Special Session of the UN General Assembly, the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action, and the Political Declaration Beijing +5. This year, we are marking the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action, but we still have a long way to go before we fulfill these documents. There is Sustainable Development Goal number 5 in the 2030 Agenda, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls, but we're unlikely to fulfill this objective within the next 5 years. In order to enable women to fully exercise their right and fulfill their potential, they need to achieve a work-life balance, and we tend to overlook social support for women and social safety net for women. We need to put the necessary infrastructure in place so that women can fulfill their potential as mothers and caretakers. Thank you so much for your attention.
Parabéns pelas suas palavras, senhora Rosa.
Congratulations for your work, Ms. Rosa Chameres.
Nós temos que nos preocupar com
we have to worry about our current population, but also think about the future and the next generation. So it was very well put, your words. And now I hand the floor to Ms. Célia Chacriabá,
que é membro da Câmara dos
Deputados do Brasil, Chamber of Deputies in Brazil,
deputada tem 5 minutos.
And your deputy have 5 minutes for your panel.
Obrigada, Presidenta.
Thank you, President.
Nós que somos as
We
primeiras mulheres
were the first Brazilian women of Brazil that start by the indigenous women, although we are the last to arrive in the Brazilian Parliament. The National Congress Leila took 109 years to elect the first woman in the parliament, but took 195 years to elect the first indigenous women, and also took 200 years to have the first indigenous woman to be the president of the commission. With a very pride, was the first indigenous woman to be president of the Amazon Commission and original people in the years of 2023. Here as well with my companion that is also indigenous. And now, more recently, 2025, I'm also the president of the Commission of the Civil Women's Rights. I got to salute the Brazilian women that have more than half the population. Through this perspective, we may be able to dialogue and have this debate in this innovative subject that we brought to debate gender and climate. We understand that the first woman of the humanity, the ancient, is Earth itself. So when the indigenous women arrive at the National Congress, arrive in the Commission, we make the policy not on the place of a deputy. The forest speaks, the water speaks, Amazon speaks, the Cerrado speaks. We understand that women, girls and women, they face vulnerability among several disasters. Some data reveal 80% of the displacement of climate displacement, the greatest part of this percentage is women. Here in Brazil, there was a case that sensibilized the world, is the Yanomami matter. More than 30 girls were raped as a result of illegal mining in indigenous land. It is needed that in this moment we bring the subject to the National Congress, but also in the global agenda. That today, think about environmental defense not only have to be thought as a defense measure, it's also a humanitarian agenda. Indigenous people are 5% of Brazil, of world population. We protect more than 80% of the biodiversity, of the world biodiversity. It is important to say that the greatest Uma has 60 meters tall. It has more than 500 years. The greatest building in Brazil, known as Copacabana Palace in Brazil, it took 3 years, and it has 70 meters. It's 10 meters higher than the Samauma tree. It's needed to understand the time of nature and the time of the man. Reforestation takes too much time. Brazil can lose the state of Paraná with more than 11 million inhabitants if approved. A project is about to be approved in this house that is known as the project of devastation. The money may avoid but the money cannot bring a forest out of a river back. The countries here from BRICS, I left a recommendation for the President of the Republic to orient the countries of BRICS to destiny 5% of the military of gender and climate. It is also needed to say that this Congress will have a bill of law that is the fighting the violence against indigenous women. If the Brazilian Congress, the retrocess process to the indigenous people, 80% of this protected area benefits 57% of the Brazilian agribusiness, and the deficit of the economy is going to be 338 billion. The forest is the land that sustains the economy. The money is not able to bring another planet. Although we're from different countries, we're different continents, or different fights, we share the same planet. In order to conclude, we say that indigenous people avoid the falling of the sky. It's indigenous women are guardians of the planet for the cure of humanity. Inspired in a Brazilian singer, Alcione, says that we are women of the end of the world. I say, parliamentarians committed helps to avoid the end of the others. Because we know that there is no parliament if there's no forest. There's no parliament if there is no planet. Smart economy is an economy that doesn't kill us. It's a call for think the digital age, but it's also the responsibilities of reforest the politics.
Parabéns pelas suas palavras, deputada.
Thank you for your words, Deputy Chacriabá.
Foram muito pertinentes
They were
todas as suas
really
colocações.
pertinent, all your appointments.
Eu quero
And now,
convidar
I'd like to invite
a falar a senhora Leila Barros, que é a
Ms.
nossa
Leila
líder
Barros, that is our
da
leader
bancada feminina
of the Feminine
no Senado
Caucus and the
Federal.
Federal
E
Senate.
você tem, senadora Leila,
And you have,
5
Senator
minutos
Leila,
para a sua
5 minutes for your speech.
Obrigada, senadora Eudócia.
Thank you, Senadora Eudócio, president of this section.
tê-la comigo aí nessa legislatura no Senado Federal.
Thanks for being here with me,
Vivendo as dores, as alegrias,
getting
enfim,
all
todo o
the
processo que a
harsh
gente
and
sabe
the
que é
good
diário.
part, and you know it's
Minhas colegas
there.
parlamentares,
For my
distintos
fellow
representantes dos
parliamentarians
países do BRICS,
from
senhoras e
BRICS,
senhores,
ladies and
é uma
gentlemen, it's an
honra
honor
estar
to
com
be
todas
with
nesta
all of you in
reunião,
this
unidas por
meeting,
tema que
united
não
by
é
the theme
apenas
that is
urgente,
not only
mas
urgent, but
existencial. A
extensional.
crise
The
climática e
climate
o papel
crisis and the
fundamental
fundamental
das
role of the
mulheres
woman
na sua
is
superação.
overcoming it.
Eu gostaria de
I
iniciar
would like to
reconhecendo o
begin by
papel
recognizing the
estratégico dos
strategic
BRICS na
role
geopolítica
of BRICS in
climática
global
mundial.
climate
Nossos
geopolitics.
países
Our country gather
reúnem quase metade da
nearly half
população do
of the
planeta,
planet's
detém imensa
population, hold
biodiversidade,
immense
territórios com vastos recursos
biodiversity
naturais
territories
e,
with vast
sobretudo,
natural resources,
vozes
and above
plurais do
all,
Sul
the
global.
power voices of Global
Esse
South.
protagonismo se
This
torna ainda
pronouncement
mais
becomes
essencial
even more
diante de novo
essential in the
cenário
face
global
of a new and
preocupante.
concerning
Dos
global
maiores
scenario.
emissores
One of
históricos
the
de
largest
gases de
historic
efeito estufa
emitters of the
anuncia
greenhouse
mais uma
gases
vez a sua
announces
retirada do
once
Acordo de
again
Paris.
its
Isso
withdrawal
não é
from the
apenas
Paris
simbólico,
Agreement.
é um
This is not
retrocesso
merely
para o
symbolic.
esforço
It's
coletivo
a
da humanidade.
setback from
E
humanity's
reafirma
collection
que
effort.
nós, do
And it
BRICS,
reaffirms that
devemos
we, the
fortalecer
BRICS
nossas
countries,
alianças
must
e agir com
strengthen our
firmeza,
islands and act
solidariedade e
with
coerência.
firmness and
O
solidarity
tempo de hesitação já
and
passou.
coherence. The
O que
time
está em jogo
for
é o
hesitation is
futuro dos
over.
nossos
What is
povos,
what
em
is
especial
stake
das
is the
mulheres,
future of
que
a people,
são
especially of women
desproporcionalmente
who are
afetadas
disproportionately
pelos
affected
efeitos
by
da
the
mudança do
impact
clima.
of the climate
Mas ainda
change,
pouco
yet
representadas
remain
nas decisões que
underrepresented in
modam
the
esse
decisions
enfrentamento.
that shape this
Precisamos
fight.
de ações
We need
concretas,
concrete
inclusivas e
inclusion
principalmente
and founded
financiadas.
actions.
E aqui faço uma
And here
cobrança
I make a
clara
clear demand,
que deve ecoar
which
como
should
posição
echo
do
as
BRICS.
BRICS
Os
position.
países
The
historicamente mais
countries
responsáveis
historically
pelas
must
emissões de
responsible
carbono
for carbon
precisam
emission
cumprir
need
sua
to
dívida
fulfill
climática.
their climate debt.
Não é justo que os
It's
países
not
mais
fair that the
pobres
poorest
arquem
country
sozinhos
bear the
com os
cost
custos
of
da
the energy
transição energética
translation
enquanto
alone,
enfrentam
while
secas,
fixing
enchentes
drugs,
e
floods,
insegurança
and food
alimentar.
insecurity.
O financiamento climático
Climate
precisa chegar
finance
às
needs
bases
to reach
e
the
precisa
grassroots,
principalmente
and it
chegar às
needs to
mulheres.
reach it to
Nesse
women.
sentido,
In this regard,
gostaria de discutir
I would like to discuss
algumas
some
propostas
proposal,
que, a meu ver,
in my view,
podem ser
can be
construídas
jointly
de forma
developed among our
conjunta
countries.
entre os nossos países. A primeira, a criação de
First,
fundo
credential
BRICS
of
para
BRICS
mulheres e
found for
clima,
women and climate,
voltado a projetos
aimed at
liderados
projects
por
led by
mulheres
women
em
in the
comunidades
vulnerable
vulneráveis,
communities,
como
such
agricultoras
as family
familiares,
farmers,
líderes indígenas
indigenous
e
leaders,
empreendedoras
and
ambientais.
environment
Segundo,
entrepreneurs. Second,
plataformas de educação climática
climate
para
education
mulheres,
platform for
promovendo
women,
acesso ao
promoting
conhecimento
access
científico, à
to
tecnologia e à
scientists,
inovação,
knowledge,
com
technology,
ênfase
and
em energias
innovation,
renováveis e
with
adaptação
emphasis on
sustentável.
renewable energies and substantial adaptation.
Terceiro,
Third,
pacto
a
de
pact
liderança
for
feminina
women's
pelo
climate
clima,
leadership,
articulado entre nós,
articulate among us
parlamentares, e que
parliamentaries
assegure a presença de
to ensure the
mulheres
presence of
nas
women
instâncias
in
decisórias
decision-making
sobre
bodies
clima
on
e transição
climate and energy
energética nos parlamentos
transition,
e fora deles.
both with parliament and
Quarta,
beyond. Fourth,
aceleradoras de
accelerators
negócios
for
femininos,
women's
com
green
apoio do
business
Banco do BRICS,
with support from the BRICS
para
Bank
financiar
to
iniciativas de
finance
economia circular,
initiatives in circular
reflorestamento,
economic
agroecologia e
reforestation,
energia limpa
agroecology,
liderada por
and
mulheres.
clean energy led
Quinto,
by
e por
women.
fim, a criação
Fifth and finally,
de
the creation
observatório
of
de
BRICS
gênero
Gender
e
and
clima do
Climate
BRICS, que nos
Observatory,
permita tomar
which will
decisões
allow us to make
baseadas
decisions
em
based
dados,
on data,
diagnósticos
diagnosed,
e
and
evidências
evidence
sobre os
regarding
impactos
the specific
específicos das
impacts
mudanças
of climate
climáticas nas
change
mulheres e nas
on
meninas.
women and girls.
Colegas parlamentares e demais
Fellow
convidados,
parliamentarians and other
sabemos que a
guests,
transição
we know that
energética justa
a just
não é
energy
apenas uma
transition is
questão
not
ambiental.
merely an
É uma
environment
questão de
issue.
justiça
It's a
social,
matter of
de
social
equidade de
justice,
gênero
gender
e principalmente
equality,
de
and
dignidade
human
humana. Sabemos
dignity.
também que as
We also
mulheres
know that
não são
women
vítimas
are not
passivas desse
pacific
processo.
victims of this
Somos
process.
líderes,
We are
somos
leaders,
cientistas,
we are
somos
scientists,
legisladoras,
we are
somos
legislators,
guardiãs
we are
dos
guardians
territórios
of
e do
territory and
conhecimento
traditional
tradicional. Somos a
knowledge.
solução.
We are the solution.
Termino com apelo.
I
Que nossa
conclude with an
presença
appeal.
aqui
May
não
our
se
presence
limite à
here
retórica.
today not be limited
Que
to
ela se traduza
rhetoric.
em ações
May it
coordenadas,
translate into to coordinate action politics commitments and real results. May BRICS be an alliance not just of emergency economics, but exceptional values that promote truly sustainable development with climate justice and gender equality at its core. Thank you so much. Let's go together.
Parabéns, nossa líder.
Congratulations, our leader, esteemed leader and friend, Leila Barros.
Suas propostas,
your propositions, they are excellent, and absolutely, Senator Leila, that's why we walk. You made a brilliant appointment. Congratulations once again. And also, once the list of the panelists is over, and before ending this session, I'd like to thank the participation of everyone. And I'd like to clarify that in sequence, we're going to initiate the third session of works with the theme, Building the Future, the Parliamentary Women and the BRICS Agenda of 2025. That is going to be conducted by the Deputy Dandara. I'd like to say once again for all present here, ladies and gentlemen, that they feel welcome to our country, to our dear Brazil. Brazil warms you, each and every one of you, and together we will make the difference in this debate of BRICS that is happening right now. So, a great embrace of Senator Aldócia and also from all the Senate and all our deputies of the Federal Chamber. And I declare the end of the present session. Thank you very much.
Tem gente inscrever para falar ainda? Nessa sessão? Porque do painel que a senhora quer? Sim, aquela que vai ser depois do encerramento? É porque todas as que estão aqui já falaram e eu não consegui falar. Não, mas era só tirar aqui ou outra, aí tem um painel. Aqui, pescado. As deputadas Juliana. Aqui, pergunta para Ana. Não, nessa aqui não, porque é só uma deputada brasileira e uma senadora brasileira para processão de trabalho. Vamos começar. No painel das 16h45. Boa tarde a todos e a todas. Declaro aberta a terceira reunião de trabalho da reunião de mulheres parlamentares do BRICS com o tema Construindo o Futuro, as mulheres parlamentares e a Agenda BRICS 2025. Cumprimento todos os presentes, dou as boas-vindas
All the present, I salute the delegation of Cuba, China, Russia, and all the present and the 10th Parliamentary Forum, 11th BRICS Parliamentary Forum. So we're going to continue the institutionalization of the space to reflect and the efforts of our nations, inseparable institutions of the international architecture. This 11th forum happens in a moment that the world faces significant challenges, climate emergence, historical inequalities, and also crisis of legitimacy and the multilateral institution. In this context, BRICS is a platform, a relevant platform to renew the multilateralism starting from the Global South, based on inclusion and cooperation and pluralism. United here in Brasília, a universe of 150 parliaments of countries of permanence, it's more than an important demonstration of the capacity of articulation. It's a political gesture of great symbolism that aims that the parliamentary be inseparable parts of the international architectures of the democracies building to strengthen themselves. Through the week, we're going to discuss crucial themes: the governance of artificial intelligence, the cooperation in public health, the reform of international institutions, the partition of women in all decision levels. So that's why I highlight the realization of the Parliamentary Women of BRICS. That strengthens it more the commitment of gender equality with the principle of governance. I also like to salute the Brazilian parliamentary in the person of Deputy Jaque Rocha that coordinates the feminine caucus here in the Chamber of Deputies, the Senator Leila Barros, and also Deputy Célia Chacriabá that represents important indigenous peoples in this space. It is needed to advance each and every time more. gender inequality was not a sectoral theme, and it's not only to be set in a small box. It is structural. It organizes the power organization in society and surpasses all the dimensions, the political dimensions of the global economies. The challenge of ecological transition cannot repeat the symmetries in the past divided in a sexual division of work, concentration of economical power and technological. It's a just transition that must be oriented by the protection of rights, by the generation of jobs, and also by the real inclusion of women, youth, indigenous peoples, traditional communities, and ethnical groups of several spaces. The gender justice is conditioned to any pact of sustainability that aims to be less long. It is also the bridge between the economic development and redistribution of power, time, and resources. In this context, it is utmost important to reaffirm the power and the center of the economies, the social biodiversity, especially in the region that are historically vulnerable with the logic of extractivism. Strengthen the territories is not only to decentralize the decisions, it's also to recognize and then them the pulsing center of this sustainable and just solutions. It is in the territories where we live, where we build the economical practices that may in fact transform the care and the food sovereignty. The sovereignty of the people must be comprehended in a strategic pillar to any development project that intend to be plural, democratic, and deepen in the global south. The Brazilian presidency of BRICS, that we say that in the Brazilian Congress, our support to the incorporation of ODS 18, equally ethnical and racial as a main component for the global agenda. We believe that there is no sustainability without racial justice. Recognize the structural disadvantages, its condition for develop public policies, national and multilateral, and also that is sensitive to the real intersection of gender, race, class, and territory. Through 2025, Brazil has conducted the presidency of the BRICS, guided by the motto, strengthening the Global South cooperation for a more inclusive and sustainable governance. This agenda materializes in 5 main axes. 1, facilitating commerce and investment with development of proper means of payment. 2, promoting a responsible governance of artificial intelligence with focus on the digital sovereignty and digital inclusion. 3, broadening the financing, climate financing, in partnership with COP30 that Brazil is also be hosting this year. 4, stimulus to the cooperation South-South with public health based in solidarity and universal access. 5, strengthening the BRICS with more than 100 meetings already realized, preparing the bloc for the summit of Chief of States in July in Rio de Janeiro. We trust in Brazilian administration and BRICS. We're going to work actively to guarantee that the countries of the blocs are represented with cohesion, clarity, and ambition. Not only in the official spaces of the conference of the UN about climate change that is going to take place in Belém do Pará, but also a dialogue with the civil society during the summit of people that's going to happen together with the COP30. We also want a COP with the people with active participation of the social movements under the leadership of youth, women, traditional communities, productive sectors committed to the new economic agenda, socially referenced and just. I'm convicted that the strengthening of BRICS surpasses by the institutionalization of democratic, by the popular legitimacy and the constant dialogue between the powers among the countries and with its societies. We also believe that the world doesn't need more promises and firm commitments and transforming commitments. BRICS has a school, has legitimacy, has responsibility, and also has a collective courage to assure the transition that be profound, inclusive, and just. My name is Dandara Durantin. I'm Federal Deputy, permanent member of the Education Committee of Camera, and also presided the Commission of Originary People. I'm going to preside this session. Before handing the floor to the panelists, some clarifying. Each panelist may use the word for up to 5 minutes to ensure the commitment on agenda and also the equality of the representatives. The audio system of this meeting room is programmed to ring a bell 30 seconds before the end of the speech as an alert to come to a conclusion of your speech, when the microphones will be turned off. I also request that all the speech they call in a very calm and slow way, in order to the simultaneous translation can reflect the speech with maximum precision. And before handing the floor to the first panelist, I reinforce the invitation for those who want to be part of the panel, women as and beneficiary of financing. The inscriptions are still open and it can be made straight with civil servant Thaisa. Where is Thaisa? Right here on the side, on my left-hand side. I thank the comprehension and the cooperation of all the necessary rules for a good of this session. Now I hand the floor for 5 minutes to Ma'am Inia Isvitania, Vice Representative of the High Chamber of Russia, Republic of Russia.
Good afternoon, colleagues. On behalf Brazil as a host country for holding this meeting of BRICS Women MPs, I would like to ask you to accept the best wishes on behalf of Valentina Matvienko, the Speaker of the Russian Chamber of the Russian Parliament. Women have come to play an increasingly important role in international politics over the past decades. Parliaments are the pillars of democracy. In this capacity, they have a primary responsibility for ensuring equality and empowering women. Under the Russian Constitution, men and women enjoy equal rights, freedoms, as well as equal opportunities for enjoying them. There is a trend in Russia for empowering women in government institutions at all levels. For example, women account for 18% of MPs in both chambers of Russian parliament. Having more women in politics and in government institutions enables us to focus on improving the quality of life of our people. Many countries have been setting quotas for women's participation as a tool for promoting gender equality in parliament, but this is not the path Russia has chosen. The state has been creating favorable conditions to enable women to fulfill their political, creative, and business potential. We seek to empower women in politics by making them more competitive. Russia has adopted a national strategy of action in the interests of women. This document sets forth a wide range of measures to support women, including by enabling them to play a bigger role in government affairs. Every 3 years, Russia hosts within the Federation Council the Eurasian Women's Forum and brings together female leaders from across the world. We promote major international projects to promote female entrepreneurship, and we discuss joint measures to fight climate change and promote cultural cooperation. There are all kinds of various women's associations that were created by the Eurasian Women's Forum, including the BRICS Women's Business Alliance and the Eurasian Association of Female Regional Leaders. In 2024, we held the first BRICS Women's Forum at the Eurasian Women's Forum. Its participants spoke out in favor of building an international community of female leaders in social matters and healthcare, establishing a working group on food security, an international group for studying the role of women in BRICS countries, as well as proposals to create a system for certifying medicines in BRICS countries. We are grateful to Brazil for sending its delegation to the Eurasian Women's Forum. We had co-chair of the Female 20, Janine and Alaska Gama, and professor of the Federal University, Fabiana Melnichuk, who represented Brazil at this forum. We had the second forum of BRICS Women Entrepreneurs in 2025 in May. There were over 1,500 delegates from 50 countries. Just like in Brazil, Russia is preparing the International Municipal Forum. It will take place in November 2025 in St. Petersburg. This is an important dialogue platform for the capitals of the participating countries so that major cities can share their best practices. This year, we will discuss parliamentary diplomacy in the time of global change. I invite women MPs to take part in this International BRICS Municipal Forum. By the way, the co-chair of the BRICS International Municipal Forum is Devanir Kavalkant, a prominent expert in municipal governance and international relations. Russia stands ready to share its experience and to learn from the experience of our foreign colleagues. Looking forward to seeing you in St. Petersburg. Thank you for your attention.
Agradeço a fala da nossa vice-presidente da Câmara Alta da Rússia.
Thank you, the High Chamber of Russia. And now I invite for 5 minutes Ms. Shabari Bairedi, member of the Low Chamber of India Parliament.
Honorable Chairperson, distinguished delegates and esteemed colleagues. It is an honor to be a part of this esteemed gathering and to speak on a profound, a very important topic, that is building the future women parliamentarians and the BRICS 2025 agenda. Let me begin my speech by quoting a saying that is what we Indians believe in, that is when women are honored, divinity blossoms, and when they are dishonored, whatever may be, how noble the cause may be, it is never fruitful. So we, as representatives of vibrant democracies and dynamic economies, the BRICS nations stand at a pivotal juncture with an opportunity to shape a more equitable, prosperous, and sustainable future. We women, particularly women parliamentarians, are the architects and drivers transforming our future. India, under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, it is no more a women development, or we no more talk about women development, but we speak about women-led development. We believe that empowering women is not merely a matter of social justice, but a need for national and also global progress. Our commitment to gender equality is deeply embedded in the ethos of our Constitution, which guarantees rights, equal rights and opportunities for our citizens. And distinguished delegates, India has a robust framework for women participation in governance. The 73rd constitutional amendment mandated 1/3 reservation for the women in the local self-governments, and we are about 1.45 million women representatives, that is 46% total, who are actively shaping grassroots democracy. And not just beside robust legal framework, we also have institutional mechanism to enforce it. For example, we have standing committee for empowerment of women, which is entirely led by women MPs. And also a landmark achievement in this journey is the historic Constitutional Act 2023, popularly known as Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. Here, we have 1/3 reservation in the Parliament, lower house, Lok Sabha, and also state legislative assemblies. So we women in India not only shape the grassroots democracy, but also the policy makers. A few important schemes that we have bought in are the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, where about 520 million people are bought into formal banking system, out of which 70% are women, and this fostering economic independence. And also we have provided collateral-free loans to small entrepreneurs by Mudra Yojana, and no more, and 300 million women are benefited, and women of our country are no more job seekers but job creators. And also 100 million clean cooking fuel connections have been given to women for free for the economically weaker section under Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, which also helped in improving health and also reducing the drudgery. Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandan Yojana also provides maternity benefits, supporting the health and well-being of mothers and newborn. And our flagship program, that is Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, it has given improvement in the sex ratio of female child, and also highest enrollment of female girls, that remarkable increase of 28%. And from Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana nearly has given 30 million houses which have been sanctioned and registered under the name of women. So this has ensured financial security and also decision-making power within the households. Distinguished colleagues, we have a unique and a very powerful role in shaping the BRICS 2025 agenda, and our collective experiences, insights, and leadership are also crucial for mainstreaming the economic growth, strengthening the social development, fostering peace and security. And it is not just talking about women leadership, but we also need to talk about the multiple challenges faced by women every day, since they are deeply interconnected with nature. Some such examples are the domestic violence, poverty, food and income security to education, health, and numerous social and cultural discriminations. And we, as the women parliamentarians of BRICS, pledge to be the vanguards of this change, building a future where every woman and girl can realize and unlock her full potential, contributing prosperity to our nations and the world. Thank you.
Obrigada pela contribuição, Chabari. Passo agora a palavra por 5 minutos para a senhora Nora Ali, membro da Câmara Baixa do Parlamento do Egito.
Dear attendees, allow me at the outset to express my deep appreciation for the efforts of BRICS aimed at promoting frameworks for cooperation among our countries at the parliamentary level to meet the aspirations of our peoples for a better tomorrow. I would also like to commend the forum's recognition that gender equality, achieving equal opportunities and empowering women in addition to being a fundamental human right, are essential for achieving stability and unleashing the full potential of society to confront this world saturated with successive crises at all levels. Although women, who make up nearly half of the world's population, have made undeniable gains and have entered various fields of life, they still strive in some communities of our contemporary world to obtain their basic rights that enable them to manage their lives and confront the setbacks in achieving equality and reaching just, inclusive, and sustainable societies for all. Structural discrimination, stereotypes, and gender-based violence create serious obstacles to women's participation in all areas of life, particularly in legislation. To date, the percentage of women members of parliaments worldwide stands at only 27.2%. Distinguished attendees, we are all certain that empowering women and supporting their future is a fundamental pillar for achieving sustainable development and an important focus on the cooperation agenda among BRICS BRICS countries, which forms a vital platform to unify efforts towards enhancing the role of women in the economy and society in the Global South through strategic initiatives and innovative projects that reflect the member states' commitment to achieving gender equality. It is of utmost importance to highlight here the key measures taken by the BRICS group to empower women and support their future, such as Jaipur Declaration issued in 2016, in which BRICS parliamentarians expressed their commitment to intensifying mutual cooperation and enhancing partnership in the dimensions of sustainable development, economic growth, social inclusion, and environmental protection. Additionally, the BRICS Women's Business Alliance, established in 2020, focused on promoting women's entrepreneurship and increasing women's participation in the economies of BRICS countries. It includes a group of prominent female figures in the business field. I would like to specifically commend the Women's Entrepreneurship Forum and its main themes related to developing regional cooperation between BRICS and Latin American countries, the Middle East, the Asia-Pacific region, Africa, and the Commonwealth of Independent States to create a free environment for women entrepreneurship, exchange of experiences and technology, development of special economic zones, and support for creative industries and projects in the fields of energy, sustainable development, and health care. I also commend the Women's Startup Competition for BRICS countries as a key mechanism to encourage companies to motivate women to participate in entrepreneurial activities and highlight innovative and high-impact startups led by women, which enhances economic integration and global cooperation, including innovative projects for automating processes in the energy sector and infrastructure facilities, artificial intelligence technologies in medicine, education, agriculture, and the production and operation of aviation equipment and robotics, as well as cancer and infertility treatment methods, among others. Let us seize the opportunity provided by our meeting today to reaffirm the BRICS Forum's commitment through its alliances initiatives to building an inclusive and equitable future for women, which reflects a genuine international commitment to empowering women and enhancing their participation in various economic and social sectors to build more balanced and prosperous communities. This cannot be achieved without parliamentary approval of relevant legislation and monitoring its implementation. Thus, parliamentarians in BRICS countries can play an active role in empowering women as follows: guiding governments to implement gender-responsive public policies in various fields that ensure the respect and enforcement of women's rights as stated in relevant regional and international labor agreements, taking regulatory measures to ensure the enhancement of the role of financing institutions in the economic empowerment of women as a fundamental step towards achieving their independence, particularly in financing small and micro projects. Thank you for listening and for your kind attention.
Agradeço a sua contribuição. Concedo a palavra por 5 minutos a Miriam Abdullori, membro do Parlamento do Irã.
I hand the floor for Member of Parliament of Iran.
In the name of God, Excellencies, in the name of God, Excellencies, dear MPs, it is an honor for me to participate among the high-ranking MPs of the BRICS member states and speak as a legislator and talk about an issue which is not only rooted in justice and equality, but also it has a crucial role in sustainable development and collective foresight. In a word, that we are seeing witnessing rapidly accelerating and complex geopolitical, economic, and technological and social transformation, and where the BRICS initiative has evolved from a mere economic alliance into a platform for multidimensional, future-oriented cooperation, a fundamental question arises. Can these profound and swift changes lead to balance, justice, sustainable success without the genuine and effective participation of half of the world's population, that is, women? Women representatives, drawing upon lived experience, a human-centered approach, and a commitment to human dignity and social justice, can act as key agents in shaping a future that is inclusive, peaceful, and resilient for the BRICS family. Women are not only carriers of new approaches and perspectives, but also serve as bridges connecting gender justice with macroeconomic, social, and environmental policymaking. If the BRICS 2025 agenda is to move toward inclusive, balanced, just, and resilient development, it is essential that women's voices be heard at all policy-making levels, and that their presence within decision-making structures be institutionalized and impactful. The BRICS 2025 agenda, which focuses on strengthening multilateralism, reforming the unfair structures of the international financial system, expanding intra-group trade, addressing climate challenges, and pursuing sustainable and equitable development, is a roadmap toward a future where human dignity and gender justice are deeply interwoven. Women legislators, by interpreting a human-centered and gender justice perspective into high-level policymaking, can reveal often overlooked dimensions of human development. Although positive steps have been taken in BRICS countries to enhance women's political participation, the key challenge before us is to move beyond quantitative participation toward qualitative, impactful, and institutionalized engagement. The presence of women brings ethical, future-focused, and people-centered thinking into the policymaking process. If BRICS intends to offer a more humane, participatory, and balanced alternative to the current unjust and unethical global order, then women must be placed at the core of this transformation, at the center of the design, decision-making, and implementation processes, not at the margins. We, women legislators, relying on our knowledge, commitment, experience, and sense of responsibility, stand ready alongside our male colleagues to build a just, resilient, and inclusive future. The future in which no human being, regardless of gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic background, is left behind on the path of progress and development. In a world grappling with simultaneous crises, from climate to economy to war and inequality, women, through empathetic vision, ethical decision-making, and a participatory approach, can reinforce the pillars of peace, sustainability, and human development. Let us ensure that the BRICS 2025 agenda is seen not just as a strategic document, but as an opportunity to redefine the role of women in shaping the global future. My colleagues and I, as women representatives in legislative bodies, with firm resolve, a spirit of collaboration, and belief in collective empowerment, are ready to take meaningful steps. Thank you for your cooperation.
Now we hand the floor to Ms. Zandile Majosi, member of the Low Chamber of the Parliament of South Africa.
Is it fine? Okay.
I thank you most sincerely for the opportunity given to participate and share experiences in the journey of building the future of women, but also to build concrete bridges of cooperation among our countries. We believe that the exchange of best practices and the establishment of strategic partnerships can accelerate progress towards gender equality in all dimensions. During the proceedings of Women's Ministers' meeting held in Brasília, it was underscored that amid the cultural diversity of what it means to, open quote, be a woman, close quote, across the bloc's civilization, one common ground emerged was certainly the importance of active female participation for a qualitative change in today's complex international landscape. The promotion of initiatives and investment aimed at ensuring women's equal participation in economic and social development, as well as the equitable sharing of the benefits of that development, was the focus of the first session. We further note that the second forum of BRICS Women's Parliamentarians held in 2025 was aimed at increasing the visibility of women in politics and formulation of public policies, strengthening the gender perspective in BRICS deliberation and reinforcing its democratic legitimacy. Achieving the goals of equal participation of women and men in decision-making will provide a balance that more accurately reflects the composition of society and is needed in order to strengthen democracy and to promote its proper functioning. It is not enough to publicly pledge our solidarity and support for women. We must clear all existing challenges to women development in order to ensure their ascendance to leadership position that they also deserve. Women must be leaders and architects of their own development needs. Equally, in political decision-making performs a leverage function. Without each, it is highly unlikely that the real integration of equality dimension in government policy-making is feasible. In this respect, women equal participation in political life plays a vital role in the general process of the advancement of women. Women's equal participation in decision-making is not only a demand for simple just or democracy, but can also be seen as a necessary condition for women's interest to be taken into account. Without the active participation of women and the incorporation of women perspective at all levels of decision-making, the goals of equality, development, and peace cannot be achieved. The struggle of gender equality and women-led development should be regarded as a societal struggle. The continuous oppression of women who constitute a majority in our societies is shame and a reflection of a sick society. It is calamity which should be equally addressed by both men and women. Women don't need favors from men, but they need a leveled and unbiased playing field where skills and capacity would be a determining factor for progress and advancement instead of gender. Inequality between women and men remains a challenge which affects women's empowerment participation in all spheres of life. This inequality is particularly visible in power and decision-making arenas, which continues to be more dominated by men. In most societies around the world, women hold only a minority of decision-making position in public and private institutions. Advances over the past 2 decades are evident in all regions and in most countries, but progress has been slow. Barriers remain despite growing acknowledgement that democracy and development can only benefit gender balance in decision-making processes and bodies. Gender equality is a right. Fulfilling this right is the best chance we have meeting some of the most pressing challenges of our time, from economic crisis and a lack of health care, of climate change, violence against women, and accelerating conflicts. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals adopted by world leaders in 2015 embody a roadmap for progress that is sustainable and leaves no one behind. Ladies and gentlemen, gender mainstreaming is a process of ensuring that programs and projects in all institutions reflect the important priorities of achieving equal opportunity for all people and acknowledge the existence of gender equality. It is deliberate effort to reverse the level of inequality through allocation of resources and policies in order to provide greater benefits for the disadvantaged efforts. Efforts to advance a country's growth and development should be produced within the contribution of all citizens. It is then pertinent to focus on the gender factors that trigger an increase in and stimulate economic growth in both low and high income countries and result in inclusive economic growth. Thank you very much.
Agradeço a contribuição e concedo a palavra por 5 minutos a Ana Maria Mari Machado, vice-presidente do Parlamento de Cuba.
I would like to give the word to Ana. Muito boa tarde, é prazer dar saludo a todos vocês desde a República de Cuba, nessa sessão do Fórum Parlamentário, especificamente fazer isso pela primeira vez, porque Cuba foi considerada país sócio dos BRICS.
Que deseamos agradecer a cada uno de los miembros por la confianza depositada en la inclusión de Cuba, lo cual tiene para nosotros un especial significado. El diálogo parlamentario en el marco de los BRICS es cada vez más importante como portavoces de los intereses de nuestros pueblos y como representantes de la voluntad política.
Representatives of the we are acknowledge of our needs and necessities of thousands of people in the world, especially women voices. In Cuba, we can express, since our experience, that the women's problems was to prioritize the program of the Cuban Revolution and the strategy of development, national strategy for development, as an objective of all society. And we recognize the potential transformative of women. It was a challenge that implemented our leader, Fidel Castro. One of the main questions was the way that we achieved and approached the women's role in our society. The objectives of the Cuban women were addressed since the beginning, and nowadays we can express that we have fulfilled our commitment of women according to the sustainable development and empowerment of women, as we have adopted in our 4th Universal UN Conference of Development. It's important to highlight that that's being able because of the political will, and the exercise of public policies has been followed up with the legal justice since 1966 and the 1985 Family Code. Those laws endorsed equal rights for women and the elimination of any manifestation of discrimination. These laws and others supported widespread, free and non-discriminatory access to education and health services, respect for women's sexual and reproductive rights, their access to family planning service and paid maternity leave, equal pay for work and equal value, and the condemnation of punishment of any acts of discrimination and gender-based violence within families, the recognition of equal duties and rights for women and men regarding domestic responsibilities, and education for their daughters and sons. These were further updated in 2019, the Constitution of the Momentos, the Family Code, and also the 4th Conference on Women, updated by Presidential Decree in 2021, the National Program for Advancement of Women. This plan is conceived as the state agenda, which integrates actions and measures that correspond to the principles recognized in our Constitution within the new context of the updated Cuban economic and social model, as well as the international commitments made regarding gender equality, as well as with the international models for gender equality. We also have a council for public policies. We've been working for the gender equality and the presence of Cuban women are 51% of the female deputy. We have more than 50% in presence in key departments. We understand that we can contribute with the dialogue spaces and create a better world in favor of the peace and leadership and raise female voices as an expression of the families that we share inside the society. And please, you can count in our contribution here in BRICS. Thank you so much for the Brazilian presidency and for the open space to our speech and for all of you present in the room. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the contribution. I concede the floor. Coronel Fernanda, member of the Chamber of Deputies of Brazil. Esteemed colleagues and men's parliamentaries from the countries of BRICS, it is an honor to be here in this meeting representing Brazil as a procurement for the Federal Chamber. I'm a Deputy Federal elected by Mato Grosso, state of the central region of place. In this session that allows us to talk about several important themes of the BRICS agenda, I'd like to talk with my noble colleagues on women's health and perspective of building a global governance fair and sustainable. I consider that it's urgent to discuss women's health as a fundamental pillar for the development of equitative of our nations. In the past week, celebrated the International Day for the fight for the women's health, created more than 4 decades ago with the objective of giving visibility to the challenges faced by women regarding health and amplify the awareness of the preventive action turned to the diseases that affect us most. Doing this highlight among women and health, it's fundamental to highlight how much the poverty enhances the vulnerability of health, specifically in the women's population. Social factors as food insecurity, non-paid work, domestic violence, precarious access to water that has direct consequences in the health, mental and physical health. Studies indicate that women in vulnerability have more mental diseases imposed by economic inequality. In Brazil, since the Constitution of 1988, the right to health is universal. Access through the SUS, unique system of health. During the assembly, the parliamentary colleagues that constructed in the main letter of our country, they concerned and making a special attention with women's health, considering the specificities. In the past few decades, the Women's Caucus in the National Congress has been acting firmly to broaden the coverture of damage and diseases with more that happens more with women. Regarding physiological and psychological impacts of the violence against women, today legislation guarantees the public network offers priority for victims of violence and the protocols that they measure and because of the violence and even the amount of women that were any kind of disability, permanent disability because of this violence, which allows us to the state to develop public policies more specifics. Although we have several challenges to overcome, Brazil is a country with continental dimensions marked by regional inequalities and racial inequalities. Data from the Ministry of Health, more than 60% of mothers' death could be avoided with precautionary and humanitarian assistance in the birth. The same data indicates that black and poor women have 2 times less access to this previous. And also, I say that several women may not do one single before birth. The maternal mortality is a sensitive indicator of Brazilian inequality. According to PAHO, in 2023, 700 women died per day in the world due to complications of the birth, totalizing 260,000 obits in the world per year. 95% of these that happen in the countries of low and medium income, usually in rural areas and poor communities. These data reveal that there are preventive solutions, but access to quality healthcare is limited to poor women. It's urgent to revert this data. So we have to prioritize the universal prenatal care, safe birth, and BRICS today has almost half of the world population. We have the opportunity to lead a new paradigm about the health of the women. For the countries in development may in fact be sovereign nations. But in order to do this, we have to articulate technical cooperations among member countries to share technologies and replicate good practices for the women's health as funds for program for prenatal care, partnership and research, the exchanging of technology of low cost, and we also need face the violence against girls and women with consequences that are physical and psychological, and makes us far from a development of sustainable development in the UN. The human health is not an individual right. It's a commitment. It's a collective commitment that us, parliamentary representatives of the people, have to have a social justice with equity and human dignity. The global sustainability that only be achievable when women have full right to health and participation of equal in the spaces of power. That this debate inspires our parliament to transform words into concrete actions, that we can today begin this collective commitment with women's health with the members countries of BRICS, guaranteeing a future that no woman may die of negligence, injustice, or prejudice. Count with us. Thank you very much. Thank you, Deputy. Now I hand the floor to Professor Dorinha, member of Federal Senate of Brazil.
Ladies and gentlemen, to prepare myself to this event, I reviewed the Declaration of Kazan from the last on BRICS, which occurred on October from last year. The 114 paragraph, only 6 mentioned the woman, 4 of them in the form of genetic, and only 2 of them talked about the theme. On the genetic, they include the woman's decision in government, national government, and each bilateral institution, recognizing the capacity of women that participated in natural on the paragraph specific 130 and 131, the question of empowering women, it's point out the economic, the necessary of promote the capacity of technology by financially as a profession, and
I want to draw attention to an essential aspect of women's empowerment: access to education. A significant portion of the restrictions on expanding women's capacity to play relevant roles in society stems from unequal access to education. In some countries, these are, in principle, cultural restrictions, but they are frequently materialized by formal prohibitions on female access to certain levels of education or specific careers. We shouldn't judge women who choose to exercise traditional roles in their society of origin. However, we must discuss imposed roles, that is, roles assumed due to lack of options. As legislators, we have a duty to promote this access. In Brazil, we have more women than men with completed higher education. However, we are still a minority in fields like exact science and technology, which reduces our presence in spaces considered less feminine.
Promoting equality is not just about educating girls. It's also about teaching boys from an early age the value of gender equality. Only then can we permanently transform partial structures that still persist in our society. This approach, view educational from the ground up, I believe greatly facilitate the discussion in the environment of public administration and high-level business about the need for female representation. Again, addressing the Brazilian case, we have for some time had a quote for women candidates by political party in each proportional election, at least 30% according to the legislation. At the moment, the women's causes of the Brazilian Congress is a fight to prevent this quote from being simply eliminated, as some intend, at the moment of the revision of electoralization occurring under the country. Most have less than 30% female presence, both in parliament and in ministries. It's urgent to train more women for public office and to normalize among men and women the female presence in the leadership positions. I also want to highlight the importance of the decentralization cooperation as a strategy to expand women's political participation. The exchange of experience between the local governments of BRICS countries can generate more effective, inclusive solutions that adapt to the reality of each territory. It is up to us to guarantee politics to promote education, inclusion, and real opportunities for women. Women empowerment will not come merely through declaration, but through concrete actions, cultural change, and political commitment. I live here. My faith, liberal capacity education is the foundation for more and the future will thank you with more representation of the women for the legislative and the woman in the space of decisions, the reduction of politics, the reductions of women attack, and above all, condition of liberals, and of course, our more participation. I participate in BRICS in Jaipur. With sadness, I come to the conclusion, during all this period of BRICS, we were ignored in most of our country and the compromise of the publics from the BRICS. It's our role to change this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Before ending the session, I'd like to inform there's going to have a 10-minute break before the ending the final session. That's going to be predicted by Deputy Jacques Rocha that coordinates the Feminine Caucus here in the Chamber of Deputies. During this break, there's going to have a coffee break here in the room about the side. Our teams will help to conduct the delegations. We kindly ask that the radio for simultaneous translation be left on the table by the end of the event. I thank all of you that honored with your presence. Good afternoon. This moment of this floor, this table, it is an extremely important moment because we're parliamentarians, we're legislators. And here in Brazil, we have several experiences related to the public banks and agency of development together with the federal government, that in this moment we retake the capacity of investment, whether in the logistics, social programs. We have one of the biggest social programs of fund transference approved by this House, the Chamber, in form of legislation. It's called Bolsa Família. We have here an experience turned to the area of health, like SUS, that's a unique health system in the public area. But we also have, in this moment, that we open the second opportunity, we'd like to, each parliamentary of each country could be aware of this intervention, because the Brazilian public banks are going to be the ones who are going to speak from this moment. It's the banks of development that have a partnership with BRICS itself. So here, we have on the table with us Shana Nogueira Lima. She's operational management of Rio Doce Fund, that is the National Bank of Social and Economic Development. Welcome, Shana. It's a huge pleasure to be here with you. We also have here Luciana Silva Barbosa de Carvalho. She's the executive manager of the entrepreneurship of micro and small companies, businesses of Banco do Brasil. It's the Bank of Brazil. And I'll have to have mentioned that Banco do Brasil, it's the first time in more than 200 years that the Bank of Brazil is presided by a woman. We also have representing the Caixa Econômica Federal. It's another public bank. Mrs. Inês da Silva Magalhães, Deputy President of the Caixa Econômica Federal. It's more than a bank with more than 100 years that is responsible for the public policies of transfer of funds in our country, transfers of income. So welcome. And also share with me the floor, Senator Leila, leader of the female caucus in the Federal Senate. It's also here with us the development agency seated right over there. Following us, Maida Pinto, Calcioli Rodrigues. She's the management of the Women in International Businesses, where establishes the partnerships, the round of negotiation among the countries in order to make the cooperation terms in order to import and export and have the trading in these countries. Also, Juliana Muniz, she's from Petrobras, one of the biggest public companies in our country related to the oil production and its derivatives. And also Raíssa Rossiter, she's consultant in the international area of SEBRAE, is the Brazilian Service of Support of Small Companies, small businesses. For their speech, Federal Isa Arruda, Ms. Juliana Cardoso, member of the Federal Parliament, and also Célia Chacriabá. So from now on, we start to the speech of Shana Nogueira, representing the National Bank of Economic and Social Development. Thank you, Deputy. I would like to thank you very much for the invitation and also salute the Deputy. And on the behalf of Jaque Rocha, I salute all the women present here. I think that's important for us to use this moment to reaffirm our commitment with the BNDES, the National Bank, supporting the entrepreneurship led by women. It's a subject, a transversal aspect in the BNDES, and all the policies that we act in all the programs that were created by the bank. It is a matter of to gather attention and to be verified. We have some specific programs. I may bring some of them here, but there are several, but it's valid to bring some of our programs. So we have the BNDES Periferia, that is a program that has been financing the Social Environmental Fund that uses the resources of the bank itself that are destined to social and environmental projects. In this program, we prioritize the public, the women and young people. We're in the third edition of this program. We have the BNDES microcredit. It is important to say that our bank is widely known for the support for great investment. It's a really relevant bank to the big entrepreneurship, but also the support of BNDES for the small business owner is representative, although it's less known. BNDES has a network of banks that are partners, also that Banco do Brasil and Caixa are also part of this network, that we support the whole Brazil, and not only with microcredit, but with credit for small businesses. In the case of microcredit, for example, it's 60% of our public are women. So the businesses represent 60%, was more than 50,000 companies supported by this initiative in 2024. We have another program, it's BNDES Garage. We support startups, prioritizing startup led by women, was more than 400 startups supported. So I'd like to once again support the invitation and the support to the business. Women's business is a central core and the management of President Mercadante from the bank. Thank you very much, Ana.
I would like to pass the word to Luciana Silva Barbosa de Carvalho, manager of the Micro and Micro Business of Bank of Brazil. Welcome. Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Good afternoon to everyone. It's an honor to be here. Being able to participate in this meeting is so important to our country, to the world. Next to women's representatives of banks, especially of Bank of BRICS, talk about financial inclusion of women and justice of economic, but also sub-intelligence, artificial, and here I bring the perspective of who's acting of Banco do Brasil, with the focus of micro and small business, where the presence of women is still increasing, but still face a lot of, and a lot of people ignored historic to access to women to the system of finance. This needs to be changed, and it starts with how we draw our products in public and evaluation. In this case, the bank has financial, not just financial, but transforming. We need criticize that don't penalize with double or triple journey that knows the journey of the woman that put impact social. Bank of Brazil, we have acknowledged for the women, giving them credits different for women's capability of education, financial education, directed for women. 44% of the companies of the bank today is directed by women, but still we need to go forward. That's why meetings like this are so important. Share practice and also deal with contracts. The Banco of Brazil today has a big importance in the global inclusion. Like this has inclusion, like dialogues with women. I finalized saying that women should invest on communities, promote economy, and give propose with a vision with the section, the public section, and multilateral to transform the general obligation and not optional. Count with Banco do Brasil. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luciana. I would like to make her intervention. Inês da Silva Magalhães. She's Vice President of Habitation of Caixa Econômica Federal. Also a mark in this bank that is more than centennial, a Vice President and such an important management that treats about the building and habitation projects in whole Brazil, and also partner of companies that are located in our countries and transforming the reality of thousands of people. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It is a huge pleasure to be here, mainly because as National Secretary of Habitation between 2005 and 2016, I had the pleasure to participate in several work groups and the theme of habitation with India, South Africa, and also demonstrating and also happy to be here today, looking how much these discussions have been advancing. Well, Caixa Econômica is a public bank. It's the fourth biggest bank in the country, and also has, as it's one of the main axes, not only habitation, but also it's implementing agency of public policies of the national government. This peculiar capacity is public bank and implementation agency leads Caixa to be present in almost every municipality in the country. In order to talk in a perspective of gender in a forum like this, it is important that we have clear that although the diminishing the poverty in Brazil, it has gender and color. It's black, women, black and young. These characteristics, they have to be considered in the design on all of public policies. Our municipalities, our residences, more than half led by women. That's why the social network in Brazil having women its main focus. Caixa, our bank, is an agent of implementation of several of these policies. I think that one of the most important is the Bolsa Família. It's a program of transfer of income that has its main focus support women, the permanency of the children in schools, and also regarding health. Another program that is really important that Caixa is implementing is Minha Casa, Minha Vida, My House, My Life. This is the program that we have one of the biggest advances of the women empowering, that is the mandatory that the title of the house, of the property, is be given to the women, regardless of an eventual breakup between of the loss of the familiar bond. I think these characteristics makes us reflect which are the advances for us to face the implementation of equal society, sharing more between men and women the economy of care. It's a huge challenge for us in the South, global South. Thank you. Thank you very much, Inês. Now I hand the floor for Mayra Pinto Caucholi Rodrigues. She's the manager, Women and International Businesses at the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Service of the government of President Lula.
Thank you so much, Deputy Jackie and Senator Leila. Thanks for the invitation to be part of this moment so important. And this comes from the president of Apex Brazil, Jorge Viana, and our director, because they couldn't be here today. They're at France right now. I had the privilege to be here in this meeting about Parliament Women of BRICS to talk about the importance of the involvement of the finance of including of women with an eye, with a focused eye. Apex, they have a mission, agents of exportation, to promote the service of Brazil outside to Brazil. This mission is to go beyond numbers and balance. It's focused on construction of a future for all the Brazilians, and also to include to put women and group on the economy. This moment that we see, we reflect the urgent of, it's more evidence than ever, this international about financial, including women's, makes us reflect about the institution of financial institution. Apex observes closely the Brazilian company, and even more, the women are more important to this scenario. It's also important to see that these women face a lot of challenge. Women, in particular, Black, Indigenous, still find barriers to have credits. It's basically because of guarantee or gender, racial or financial products. Still talking about Brazil, we still see diverse, different regionals. Women are now North and South still find challenge. The incorporation of credits of gender and racial on this financial, it's not just a question of, it's also a strategy, intelligent strategy of economic development. So Apex do a program of women, is ready to be partner with this journey, believing that we could have the economy for the women to have access to finance. We're not just fixing histories, but benefiting. Obrigada.
Muito obrigada, Maíra.
Thank you, Maíra. Now I hand the floor in the name of Petrobras, Juliana Muniz, partner of Petrobras presidency. Please take our deepest regards to Magda Chambrian. Now, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Deputy Jackie. I'd like to salute all the parliamentarians here present, all the authorities, and also like to thank, in the name of President Magda, the Senator Leila, and Deputy Jackie for this opportunity. It is an opportunity for us at Petrobras have to show, to present that we are developing this subject, but mainly it's an opportunity to have a good access to this debate and what we learned today, and also deepen our internal policies and what we've been dealing with our chain of supply. This for us is It's a dear subject, and so we have diversity aspects in the human rights in our internal policy, and as I mentioned, in our relationship with our suppliers, we have diversity aspect with suppliers. We have goals in our strategic plan in 2025 to 2029. That is within this goal that we dealt the minimum of 25% of women in leading roles. I know that the Petrobras, because of the characteristic of the work that we make, it's a greatest part, a male role, but it's also reflect in the occupation of spaces of leadership, but it's also in our strategic plan and goal for the 2025-2029, that by the end of 2029, we'd like to reach this goal of 25% of women in leading role and minimum 25% of Black people working as well in leading roles. We know that promoting the gender equity and our ethic conduct, and also the human rights directives and the Petrobras, we have in our diversity DEE that was signed in 2024, and also we signed a pact for diversity, equity, and inclusion in 2024. We have a specific structure for dealing the matter of diversity, equity, and inclusion, that it's within our human resources. And we also have to highlight, we have a Commission of Human Rights that is made of 40 executive management. It's a forum that we discuss all that regards these thematics within Petrobras, and also divided them with other groups and brought us through all Petrobras. Whenever there's an acting Petrobras, there's this discussion forum. Just to conclude, thank you. In 2023, we approved the racial equity program that has the predicted action till 2027. We have a mentoring program and that foster this implementation of the participation of the leading roles, Black leading roles in our decision spaces, and the intervention of social environment. We have the autonomy and income in order to capacitate workforce for Petrobras, and also destined part of the for Black people, women people, and trans people. And we also have the programs Petrobras Socioambiental that considers women and Black people as priority in their actions. And at the end, we'd like to contractual relationships. All of our contracts, service contracts, they had terms of human rights for adopting actions to promote the diversity, equity, and inclusion, preferentially for Black people, women, and people with disabilities. In this sense, the diversity, equity, and inclusion, considering the equity, gender, and sex, is a value and has been implemented in our management and been strengthened, leading corps, strengthening the relationship with your suppliers and mainly with the society. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Juliana.
Raíssa Rossité, nossa consultora da área internacional.
Our consultant of the international area of SEBRAE. Good afternoon. I'd like to talk to Senator Leila, Deputy Jackie, everyone present, Excellencies, and colleagues. Thank you to all the women here and other countries from BRICS. As a consultant of the international from SEBRAE, The surveys from small and micro business on these institutions have been.
It is a huge satisfaction that I address to you and yourself for reaffirm our commitment to the female protagonism as a transforming strength of the current challenges. We witness how the women empowerment is a fundamental instrument for the overcome of domestic violence of gender. The entrepreneurial women of the BRICS countries has been showing through innovative attitudes for the environmental recovery project in the bioeconomy and sustainable startups, something building a sustainable future and inclusive. Beyond that, it's important to highlight that women, they are being businesswomen not only in the more traditional economy, but also in areas of technology, digital transformation, and also artificial intelligence. It's important to broaden the offer and access to financial resources for it to contribute in a decisive way, generating jobs, inclusion, and sustainable solutions. I'd like to highlight, as also in the BRICS under the Brazil presidency, the startup led by women that received more than 1,000 inscriptions, that is done in partnership with the National Confederation of Industry, led also by Women's Business Alliance, presided by Mônica Monteiro. This confluence between the business sector and the female entrepreneurship shows the capacity to change challenges into opportunities, promoting efficient solutions for climate changes and reduce the inequalities of gender, race, and other social economical markers. In this scenario, it is extremely important to broaden the mechanisms of following up. I'd like 1 minute, please. Transparency in the management of resources that foster these initiatives. We'd like the new development bank adopt indicators of gender and race, allowing to measure the precise measure of the impact of the adopted measures and the strategic resources for the business led by women, contributing for a truly sustainable development. Parliamentarians of the BRICS countries to unite in this transformational agenda, strengthening the visibility and the protagonism of women in politics and public policies at national level and international. Together, we can define an innovation, social justice, and sustainability, building a better future for the next generations. SEBRAE, finally, reinforces its commitment to a bigger participation of women in the economy. Parliamentarians and leaders of BRICS count with SEBRAE. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raíssa. I'd like to ask Ms. Juliana Cardoso, member of the Brazilian Parliament.
Hello, good afternoon. Deputies and parliamentaries of all the Brazil and other countries, especially the senators here in Brazil. I'm very happy to be here. For me, it's very significant. I came from a region very poor, from the city of São Paulo. It's a region of the politics barely went there, and you have to, now today I'm sitting here talking to other countries that we could talk economic, this crisis, climate, women empowerment throughout the economy. So I want with gratitude refer to each one parliamentary here present. Well, when we talk about relationship about banks, financial, we always see the question of gender. But gender, talking about vulnerable society, the vulnerability with women, there's color, there's races, there's social classes. sends women that fight day by day to have the survivor of life, and they have to work themselves to be able to do things at home, and especially on today that women has been single moms, taking care of your house and the education of your kids. Because of that, when we talk about banks, when we talk about finance, we have to see, especially observing these places where there's no politics, because we already live in Brazil, especially social classes, the more social class, the more access you have to politics that talk about the economy. And the women that more needs this politics, they are left out. They don't know where to go. They don't know what's the format that we could get and have access to this finance. Because the finance, it depends on how it is. It's very broad. And this doesn't fit for these women that needs the most. So when this happens in Brazil, it's not just here in Brazil, it's important on this meeting that we start seeing possibilities that these women have space on a clean economy of inclusion, and especially the climate crisis. Just to finalize, in special in this crisis climate that we have, it's necessary that we put all these people to focus on that. And this will only start when our women start to talk about this politics. Thank you so much, President.
Thank you, Juliana, for your speech. I'll hand the floor to Federal Deputy President of the Commission of the Rights of Women, Mrs. Célia Chacriabá. First and foremost, I'm extremely happy, even in different languages, when we talk about women, we see some smiles, and the regard is also, we can communicate with these women. First, and we are talking about this gender and climate. Last week we discussed a lot here, and we were talking the project that can devastate the environmental matter is almost like finishing the unique health system. It's the unique life system in the planet. Even that our system of health is a reference in the whole world that cannot be dismantled, but it was made by the men's hands. But we don't have any time to rebuild another planet. But here in Deputy Juliana, when we're talking about financing, I've been to 10 COP International. Today is going to be direct finance for the communities. And when we were in an agenda and the German cooperation with the delegation of Indigenous women, we were talking about the direct financing to these associations. And then the World Bank, we're talking about this, talking about the country. If you were technically prepared to assume a management of resources, this amount of resources that are made in a bureaucratic way. So yes, we're ready. We make the management, we do the management of the most expensive resource of the humanity, that are the forests. When we were talking about Tassiani, the president of Banco do Brasil, that's been doing different than the small businesses in internationally, the COP in Dubai. We also make part of the greatest World Bank. Oh, you're the representative of one of the banks? Yes, we have the greatest bank of carbon stock. Senator Leila was... This initiative is the only way to the financing to reach these communities. The carbon market shows that protects, compensates, because at this moment, people don't know, it's like an SAT. What is the first economic activity in Brazil? The first economic activity in Brazil was in 1511, where export 5,000 trees of pau-brasil to Portugal. And the second economic activity, that was the resin of pau-brasil, it was to paint these clothes. And the third economic activity was in 1530, there was sugarcane. But it doesn't know that the extinction of pau-brasil was one of the biggest of carbon credit. We also have to say about reforestation as an economic agenda, and also facing women violence is that the only subject that we reunite but not gather together, it has to be stopped to be dealt with a polarized subject. It's got to be dealt as a humanitarian subject. In order to finalize, we have been discussed in this house, our commission, we're going to install an under subcommission to deal with the 6 days working, day off, and show that the financial autonomy that shows the data that women has the domestic violence, but it's also a bill of laws from Socorro Nero, and we have to think about the economical forest economic and the perfectioning these projects. That's why important SEBRAE is here. So we need to womanize, make women in politics and women. But that Senator Leila, she comes from the sport world. And I talk about the sustainable economy as a sport not only helps to heal, it avoids getting ill, because healing is like reforestation. It takes a lot of time. We have several indigenous women that play well. We avoided the fall of the sky, as we say in the culture. We parliamentarians, if we lead this global agenda, we can avoid the fall of the economy and a predatory economy. And we are here to think about this agenda of sustainable financing, not only as an economy of the global market. It's a subject of a recivilization of humanitarian. Let's think about the recivilization and the sustainable economy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Célia. And I'll invite
our federal deputy from Brazilian Parliament, Ms. Isa Arruda. Good afternoon. I speak as Deputy Federal Nordestina from a region marked as for the resistation and power of this people, and especially women. The climate is not it's already here between us. This is the impact of how we know and severe between the most vulnerable. In this impact, there's face, there's name, and there's gender. The faces of the women known as this expression of this geography, Aziz Absax, don't talk about about the woman left out from husbands, women that are left behind with your sons and kids, dealing with the things of home, and the surviving of climate. It's with that perspective that I present a project, Law 2525 of 2023, that institutes the politic of the dryness of Nordestina, a politic that recognizes the dryness of natural phenomena and not as a tragic, but a politic that proposes the only biome 100% Brazilian protect the Caatinga is to protect the climate, is to give is to fertilize. And there is no way to think convivence with the dryness without thinking of the women of the center of the politics, because they are the ones who are always in the center of the resistation. So we need to break this paradigm to treat the dryness, and it's time to make it stronger. And for that, we need the investment. We need resource. We need investment in science. We need to know and value and promote technology, social, that transform this vulnerability and present.
Senhoras e senhores, as viúvas das secas, elas não pedem compaixão.
They
Elas
don't
exigem reconhecimento, dignidade e
dignidade
políticas
and politics publics
elas são
efficacious.
as arquitetas
They are the
de um novo
architectures of a new
onde a justiça
paradigm,
climática se constrói com a
where the justice climate builds itself with all of us, and thus this BRICS inspire us to build together, and from here comes with compromise politics, and that no woman will not be left behind on a statistic climb, and the resistance of this women be an example of the national global. Thank you so much.
Muito obrigada, Isa.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all of the banks that were represented here that made part of the floor. I kindly thank the presence of you, the participation of the Brazilian agencies, and I declare finish this moment, and I begin the speech, the closing speech by Senator Leila Barros. Thank you. We're going to wait just a little bit because for the people on the TV to make the swap, okay?
In
order to register, before ending, closing this panel, so from now, 5:30, it's going to be offered a cocktail in the Black Hall
terá lugar amanhã, a partir das
and
10h30 da manhã,
that's going
para
to
a
take place
solenidade da
tomorrow at
abertura
10:30
do 11º
of the
Fórum
11th
Parlamentar dos BRICS.
Parliamentary Forum of BRICS.
Convido para fazer
I
uso da
invite
palavra a
to the
senadora
floor
Leila Barros,
Senator Leila
líder da
Barros,
bancada feminina
leader
no
of the female
Senado
caucus
Federal.
in the Federal Senate.
Obrigada, Jaque Rocha,
Thank you, Jaque
nossa
Rocha,
líder, né?
our
Coordenadora da bancada
coordinator of the
de deputadas, né?
the
Da
female
bancada feminina aqui da
caucus
Câmara Federal,
of the
mas é uma
Federal
liderança,
Chamber, but it's a leadership, it's a strong woman.
bacana
It's really
compartilhar com
good to
você
share
esse evento,
with
não
you
só
this
com você,
event,
mas com todas
not only
as
with you, but all the
senadoras,
senators,
deputadas,
deputies,
né? As nossas assessorias,
our
né? Tanto de Câmara e Senado,
our
parabéns
Chamber and Senate,
às nossas assessoras
to
e
our
assessores
helpers
proporcionado esse
for
encontro
giving
aqui
us this
tão importante, tão
extremely
importante.
important
Então,
encounter.
eu queria de alguma forma agradecer, né,
I'd
as
like to thank
delegações da
the
África do
delegation
Sul,
of
Arábia
South Africa,
Saudita,
Saudi
a
Arabia,
nossa aqui do Brasil, China, Egito, Emirados Árabes
Brazil, China,
Unidos,
Egypt,
Etiópia,
United Arab
Índia,
Emirates,
Irã e
Ethiopia,
Rússia.
India, and Russia.
Minhas saudações
My warmest
calorosas,
greetings
meus agradecimentos,
and my
não só em meu
deepened
nome,
thanks,
mas
not only my name,
toda a
but
bancada feminina do
all the
Congresso Nacional.
female
Antes de
caucus
tudo,
of the
registro
National
meu
Congress.
profundo
First and
agradecimento pela
foremost, I wish to
presença,
express my
pela
profound
disposição
gratitude
ao
for the
diálogo
presence,
e pela
willingness to
contribuição de
engage in
cada
dialogue, and
e cada
contribution to
que
each and
estiveram
every one of you
nessa
at this
segunda
second
reunião
BRICS
de
Women
parlamentares.
Parliamentarians
A
Meeting.
diversidade de
The
experiências que
diversity of
trouxeram a
experiences you
Brasília
brought to
enriqueceu o
Brasilia
debate,
enriched the
fortaleceu
debates
nossos vínculos,
and
né? O
strengthened
mais
our
importante
bonds
é
of
isso.
cooperation.
Essa conexão, esse vínculo de cooperação.
This
Ficou
bond of
evidente ao longo do
cooperation.
dia que esse
It became
encontro
evident
é
throughout the
mais do
day
que
that this
uma
gathering
reunião
is more than a sporadic
esporádica,
meeting,
como tantas outras que
as
nós
several
temos,
others that we have
durante o nosso exercício parlamentar.
during our
Na verdade,
parliamentarian
essa reunião
exercise.
é uma necessidade
Actually,
política.
this meeting is a
As
political
mulheres, elas
necessity.
continuam
Women remain
subrepresentadas nos
underrepresented in decision-making spaces
decisão em todos os
across
nossos países.
all our
Por
countries.
isso, eu proponho
Therefore, I propose
que
that we
institucionalizemos
institutionalize the BRICS Women Parliamentarians Meetings in the calendars of all BRICS interparliamentary forums, and that, starting in 2026, it takes place every year, if possible, even with a deliberative character, producing concrete recommendations for the summits of heads of states, and for the Parliamentary Forum. This will ensure continuity for our agendas and consolidate a permanent network of female cooperation. This is the meaning of this encounter. On this occasion here in Brasília, we held 3 working sessions, just to remind us. The first session, Women in the Age of Artificial Intelligence, Protection of Rights and Female Inclusion in the Digital Economy. We debated how AI can expand but also threaten women's rights, our rights, the rights of all of us women. We highlighted the urgency of legislation that combats non-consensual deepfakes, enables the qualification of girls in STEM, science, technology, and mathematics, and engineering mathematics, and demands algorithmic transparency to avoid gender biases. And the second session, empowering women to face climate crisis, we recognize the disproportionate burden that extreme events, drought, floods, and fires place on women and vulnerable communities, and we agreed to incorporate climate justice into all mitigation and adaptation policies. And finally, the third, building the future, women parliamentarians and the BRICS 2025 agenda. Several representatives here, we aligned our priorities with the motto of the Brazilian presidency, strengthening South-South cooperation for more inclusive and sustainable governance, discussing global health, trade, reform of the peace and security system, the matter of health and mental health, institutional development, always from a gender perspective. And these debates prove that we women are protagonists in the responses to the technological and climate challenges of the 21st century. Madam parliamentarians, sir parliamentarians, authorities, and other guests, in less than 2 decades, BRICS has ceased to be a financial acronym to become an expressive bloc that defends multilateralism, social inclusion, and sustainable development. We present over 40% of the world's population, one-third of the global GDP, and above all, a collective voice that values sovereignty, South-South cooperation, and the reform of international governance bodies. And in this context, the effective presence and participation of women in the summits and the bloc's decisions prove to be a necessity of this global moment. I would like to conclude this brief address by extending a special invitation. Not all are here. Everyone is suffering from jet lag. It's not easy to take a long flight. We know that Europe, some countries are even 11 hours. It's completely understandable. But I'd like to thank, and I'd like to, a special invitation from 10 to 21 November, Belém do Pará, in the state of Pará. In the northern region of our country, we will host the COP30, including tomorrow. I'm going to a diligence at the end of the day to Belém. I mentioned here with Jacques, Deputy Jacques. We have the subcommission of COP30, both Chamber of Deputies and Senate. We have a diligence because tomorrow is the International Day of Environment, June 5th. But for those who are connected, and since, like Célia Chacriabá, we are going to Belém to follow all the agreements and follow-up of the event. It's going to be an extremely important event for our country. We're going to be 3 days in this diligence. So I keep you all updated of how it's the... So the Amazon will be the stage of crucial negotiations at a time of prolonged droughts, devastating floods, and other environmental tragedies affect thousands of families around the world, including in our countries. Global expectation is high, and we will only deliver results if we come together, women and men, parliaments and governments, with ambitious proposals for climate financing, a just energy transition, and biodiversity preservation. We count on the present mobilization of all BRICS delegations to make COP30 a milestone of concrete action. So that's why we're asking this encounter. I conclude by reaffirming that the strength of our bloc lies also in the strength of its women. Let us continue transforming voices into votes, votes into laws, and laws into a dignified life for those we represent. Thank you very much.
Passo a leitura da síntese da presidência das sessões
I make the reading of the... It's going to be delivered tomorrow at the beginning of the 10th Forum of BRICS.
Thank you so much, Senator Leila Barros, for this leadership, this incredible leadership, and to say that we still have lots of fight in this parliament and guarantee the reservation for the chairs for women, and there are no reversal on this electoral that has grown so much from the women's and the politic, but that we can still go forward, and the chamber and the senators are together on this proposal for the ones that are coming. Exactly. The meeting of Women's BRICS was on the 12th. Reunite representatives, the delegation of the members, South Africa, China, Cuba, Emirates Árabes, Iran and Russia. On a constellation of a governance global and democratic and sustainable. During the long system, they were aboard for the construction of together
a partir das prioridades temáticas estabelecidas pela presidência brasileira dos BRICS em 2025.
On the first section of this impact of intelligence, the female inclusion, debated on the desenvolvement of technology was new, but a new inclusion of empowerment of women of all levels contribute for debates with Emirates, China, India, Iran, and Brazil. The intervention also formulate normative national that guarantee that the new forms of technology respect the women's rights, especially respect the women's. Also said about the mechanism of global to provide the digital violence and to protect the women and girls of this also made it clear that crime against women on digital places, also the responsibility effective of the digital platform from rigorous politics.
Representação feminina nos campos da ciência, tecnologia, engenharia e matemática, STEM, foi amplamente reconhecida como desafio central.
Was recognized with the central next to algorithm on the system automatics that went deeply. There was a dialogue with the importance of politics and programs, international programs that anticipate the participation of women at these areas with the and more access to women to the digital tools. The parliamentaries also talked about the effect unequal of the different climate. Also mentioned the importance of the compromise, international compromise, together to change the climate, to make it an opportunity, politic, with the woman in the center.
Participated in these sessions the South Africa, Iran, India, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Russia, and Brazil. Several representatives highlighted that the women that live in the rural context and peripheral are among the main victims of the effects of the climate changes as natural disaster and health, security, forced displacement, and loss of income. It also highlighted that these impacts, they come from inequality, historical inequality and structural inequalities that limit the access to women to education, technology, and decisive power. It also the responsibility of main parliaments formulating marks and public policies turn to mitigation and climate adaptation. Several interventions defended that legislation, national plans, international impact lead to take in consideration the needs, knowledge, and contributions of women, including specific actions of financing, capacitation, access to land, and technological innovation and participation of decision spaces. It was also highlighted the urgency to recognize this protagonist as a strategic for building a fair future and inclusive. In the third section, the delegations reflected about the path to strengthen the cooperation South-South and broaden the protagonism of the women in the multilateral agenda of health, trade, technological governance, peace, and security. Participating in the discussions, India, Russia, Egypt, Iran, South Africa, Cuba, and Brazil. The interventions they made together with the centrality of women, building the BRICS agenda, understanding that their active participation must assume a structural role in the decisive process, reiterated the equality among men and women as the indispensable condition for the consolidation of a new international governance based on equity, social justice, and sustainability. For several times, it was highlighted the urgency to broaden the participation of women and the spaces of power in decision-making, national and international. It also defended the pairing of the powers of executive, legislative, and judiciary, facing the violence, the political violence, and against women, the fight for poverty and economic inequality, the stimulant for education based on inclusion and equity, and also creation of institutional environments more inclusive as necessary measures to guarantee the representation, the effective representation. The delegations also recognize BRICS as a strategic platform of exchange, good legislative practices, and the strengthening of international partnership, creating permanent forums, legislative practices, and also dialogues in favor of equality. They suggested the development of business alliances, political capacitation, and legislative initiatives to economic rights and of women. At the end, the meeting on an extra panel as objectives to the dialogue with banks of development and focus of broadening the participation of women as a beneficiary agents of the financing base of these institutions through exchange to strengthen the economic impact of the financial projects promoting equity, sustainable development of the BRICS country. The meeting of Parliamentary Women in BRICS reinforced the commitment of acting articulated and collaborative in the countries of the bloc, recognizing the strength of the parliamentary diplomacy of women to foster the structural information, the content that is going to be forward to the 11th Parliamentary Forum of BRICS as a contribution to the Parliament and the building of an international agenda oriented by equity as a commitment to ensure the continuity of the meeting of the parliamentary women, highlighting the importance of its institutionalization as an annual event and permanent of the forum. These are the considerations of this forum that is already historical. I declare this session ended and we follow together for a world each time more human, just, and built by the hand of all women of Brazil, of BRICS, and all of the world. Thank you very much. Histórico. História de alegação, arquivos em cache, tudo. Recording stop. E aí? Desafiador, né?
Vai chegando no final, a gente vai ficando assim. Esse não foi fácil. Esse não é fácil, não. Foi fácil, não. Foi não? Porque você falou que ia ser assim, né? Porque você tem mais experiência que eu. Esse não foi fácil, não. Já tive eventos bem mais fáceis. Porque eu achei que eu tô sendo muito... O que eu fiz foi bem mais tranquilo.
Você fez quantas vezes você fez? Esse é o segundo evento?
Essa é a minha quarta.
Quarta vez, entendi.
Foi mas tinha nada a ver com... Nada de política, era sobre micropigmentação das mãos.
Era o quê?
De micropigmentação, coisa de mulher. O outro,
aí foi
esse é meu terceiro, porque o outro foi consecutivo, então o outro não conta, foi mesa aberta. Então, de cabine é meu terceiro.
Entendi. Micropigmentação?
Foi enorme o evento, viu?
Sério? Quantos dias?
Enorme, 3.
Pô, legal.
Você deve estar pensando, pô, que furada me colocaram com a iniciante.